Good afternoon, and welcome to the Community Arts Impact Grant Application Workshop. I'm Martine Collier, Director of the Arts Council Division. The workshop will be conducted by Kathy Collins, who is the manager of the Community Arts Impact Grant, and we have other staff members from the Arts Council Division present, Eileen Blake and Lisa Hill. First of all, I commend you for attending this workshop. This is the first step, not just in writing a successful grant application, but also in achieving everything you need to do after you receive a grant to receive the funding that you requested. So couple of housekeeping things. Please, there will be plenty of time for questions at the end. If you will hold your questions until the presentation is over, that would be great. So with that, I will ask Kathy Collins to take it away. Kathy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending. As Martine said, my name is Kathy Collins. I am the Program Manager for the Community Arts Impact Grant. You will see in some of the slides, I've abbreviated that to be CAIG, so that's all that means. So the Community Arts Impact Grant is basically a grant for small nonprofits or even large nonprofits who have a small project that they want to fund to either grow or expand, or they just need some funding for it. You need to understand that it is for expenses for a project and it is not for operational expenses. Moreover, it is a reimbursement-based grant, and we're going to get into that in a little bit, but that is really important that you all understand that it is reimbursement-based. And all the funding comes from the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. So no matter what happens between, let's say now in October, until the board votes, nothing is final with respect to these grants. There is also a component of the Community Arts Impact Grant that is for colleges and universities. When you go into the grant, you'll either identify yourself as a nonprofit or as a college and university, and there are just some questions that are a little bit different. There's one section, and there are a couple of things that both groups do a little bit differently. However, for both nonprofit and colleges and universities, it's project-based, and the focus must be on arts and culture. With respect to the colleges and universities, students and faculty are not the focus of any of the projects, but rather the community. As I said, this is a reimbursement-based grant. That basically means, in the simplest terms, you have to put out the money on the project and then ask the county to reimburse you. In addition, when you are preparing your application, you have to make sure that you are keeping the expenses that you are going to ask for to be reimbursed have to be the ones that you ask for in your project. And again, I'll get into that a little bit further, but just keep in mind, it's reimbursement based. It doesn't mean you're going to get a check as soon as the county says that they're going to fund the program. You have to spend the money, submit reimbursements, and then get a check once it has been approved. Now, here are some important dates. The grant opened yesterday at 9 a.m. and it will close on Friday, March 28th at 5 p.m. That is the absolute drop dead deadline. Nothing at 5:01 p.m. will be accepted. During the time that the applications are being submitted and for about a week after they're submitted, staff reviews each application for eligibility. And then we also, if we have time before the deadline, if you submit it early, we try to check for any kind of errors so that we can let you know that if it can be fixed. Once we indicate all eligibility, the applications themselves then go to the Arts Council Advisory Board, who reviews and scores the grants. They will then meet on Tuesday, June 3rd to vote on the scores that were eligible to be funded. Then, in either October or November, the county commission will vote at a regular meeting to whether or not to fund the applications. Now, for the Community Arts Impact Grant, the application that you are filling out is for fiscal year 2026. So that means that your project must take place between what you're going to get reimbursed for must occur between November 1, 2025 and August 15, 2026. Now, we understand that there are projects that are ongoing, but you have to understand that you are limited to that time frame for this particular grant. If funds have been expended outside of that time frame, they are not reimbursable. You also can submit up to 5 reimbursements as long as it totals up to the amount that you are asking for, but you must submit everything by August 15, 2026. Now, I've put this in here because I want you to keep this in mind when you are doing your application budget. You have to keep receipts for everything that you do. So, for example, if in your budget you ask for reimbursement for supplies, you're going to have to keep receipts for the supplies that you buy beginning on November 1. Or if you have a venue rental, it can begin November 1, but you have to keep documentation to show what you're paying, who you paid it, and when you paid for it. And then we will have an administration webinar after the county commission votes on the grants, and we'll go into far more detail with respect to the reimbursement process. But I just want you to keep this in mind. So like if you put in your budget something, you have to make sure that you're going to keep contemporaneous records showing how much you paid for it, when you paid for it, and how you paid for it. Now, for nonprofits, the Community Arts Impact Grant amount can be anywhere between $1,000 and $5,000. $5,000 is the maximum. You must attain a score of at least 75, and your grant activities must take place between November 1, 2025 and August 15, 2026. Now, as I said, you have to make sure that you can put the money out and then get reimbursement. For the colleges and universities, the grant amount is anywhere from $1,000 to $12,500. Again, you must obtain a minimum score of 75. Now, eligibility, all applicants must be based in Hillsborough County. You must be a 501c3 and you must be in good standing. You also are going to have to provide a copy of the IRS determination letter that shows you are a 501c3. Without that, you cannot move forward. You also must be registered with the state of Florida as an active nonprofit. And this is important. No municipalities, governmental entities, or educational institutes, except for the colleges and universities, are eligible for this grant. In addition, if you are a prior Community Arts Impact Grant, you must be one who is in good standing in order to be eligible. Examples of nonprofit applicants there are a lot, but we consider them small arts and cultural organizations or social service agencies, youth centers, community and service organizations, as long as you are a 501c3 and registered with the state. Some of the projects that we have funded in the past include free art classes for children or adults, concerts, film projects, dance performances, small festivals, as long as it is within the disciplines of dance and arts, literature, creative writing, media, arts, music, theater, and things of that nature. It has to be arts-based in order for the project to be eligible. Now, for colleges and universities, any department can apply, but only one application can be funded. Again, the grant is for project support only. It cannot focus on students or faculty. It has to be something that is an event for the community of a cultural nature to go to attend. And all of your expenses that you submit must be directly related to the project. Projects that are not eligible would include things if you're going to have an event specifically for fundraising, if there's something where academic credit is given, something where the general public is not allowed to attend, or it is restricted only to membership, and we can't fund something where somebody is trying to raise for a capital project. Examples of some eligible expenses. These are just examples. If you, for example, pay an art instructor, if you pay for a composer to compose a song for a concert, or a designer who maybe designs like your pamphlets and your flyers for your project. You can also get mileage reimbursement, art supplies, marketing. If you do things, you just have to have the receipts to show what you what you spent your money on and how you paid for it. And it has to be included in your budget. You can't, when it's time to request reimbursement, you can't come back and then all of a sudden you're asking for 4 or 5 different things that are nowhere in your application budget, because you'll be told these are not eligible. Ineligible expenses include things like re-granting, no types of food or beverages, cash awards are not included. Any type of like business expenses like office rent or utilities are not eligible. And in addition to that, expenses that occur outside of the funding period are not eligible, or ones that are not in your application budget. Again, your funding is based on your score, and you must receive at least a 75 or higher. However, you must understand that even if you get 75 or higher, it does not guarantee funding, because the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners must vote on whether or not they are going to fund this program. Now, here we have the Arts Council, the website for the Neighborly software, which is what we use for our Community Arts Impact Grant applications. If you are a prior Community Arts Impact Grant recipient, you do not have to set up a whole new password and user fee. You can use your new one and just look for the fiscal year 2025-26 application. One thing that we strongly suggest is that you try and work on your application and get it submitted early. If you get it in and I see a mistake, I can reach out to you and I can help you fix it. If you submit it on March 28th at 5 o'clock and there is a mistake, it may very well make you ineligible if you have failed to attach something. So it's really, really imperative that you thoroughly review your application and have somebody else look at it maybe before it's even submitted, and get it in early. And likewise, if you are working on your application and you have a question about something, please feel free to reach out. I am more than happy to go over something with you and try to help you. I can't tell you how to prepare your grant application, but I can help you, guide you in the right direction where you need, if you're looking for something that you need to add. Now, this is what it looks like when you open up the Neighborly software, and you're going to again go to Community Arts Impact Grant Program and click on it. You then will name your application so that you'll be able to know what it's called, and then you can start it. Now, this year, the application, this is the breakdown. We've added 1 or 2 new things. So you'll see that there is a program overview. There is also new this year, which is an eligibility quiz. Then you have to select whether you're a nonprofit or a college and university, and that will kind of open up specific sections for each applicant. And then you'll see there's a profile, there's a narrative, is an operating budget and a project budget, and then there are certain support materials that have to be submitted and some that are optional. And at the end, when you certify it, that's where you would hit submit, complete and submit. Now, as I indicated, new this year is an eligibility quiz. There's one for the nonprofits and one for the colleges and universities. You have to answer all the questions. And at this time, in the beginning of the grant application this year, is where you must upload your IRS determination letter. And you have to have either a 990, a 990 EZ, or a 990 postcard, which were prepared within the last 18 months. There are no exceptions to this. If you do not have your IRS determination letter, then you need to reach out to the IRS and get it. If you have your 990, you're going to have to make sure that you have you have to have the full thing, and you have to attach it. So if you did it yourself, or if you had an accountant do it, you need to make sure that you have a copy of it. Now, this is what the IRS determination letter looks like. I want everyone to understand it is not in W-9. This is the one that you received at some point in the past from the IRS indicating that you are now a 501c3 nonprofit. If you are not a 501c3 nonprofit, you cannot apply for this particular grant. And again, as I indicated, you have to provide either a 990, a 990EZ, or a postcard, and it has to have been done within the last 18 months, and you have to attach it to your application in the very beginning before you can move forward. Now, as you move forward down the list of the application, one of the blocks will get filled in as you have completed it. If while you are working on your application and it is before the deadline, if you realize you made a mistake, you can contact me. I can reopen that section and allow you to fix the mistake. However, that is not going to happen after the deadline. This is only if you can get it done before the deadline. Now, as we've indicated, Community Arts Impact Grant is all about projects. So basically what I want you to do in your application is tell us the story of what you do. Who do you serve? What does your project do? When will you do it? Where will you do it? And why will you do it? You have to paint a story for the reviewers. I may know who you are, but the Arts Council Advisory Board may not know who you are. And if you don't paint a picture for them, it's going to be very difficult for them to review and give good grades or good scores if they're unable to figure out what it is that you are doing and who you are serving. So make sure that you are providing them with all the information that you can. Again, as I said, tell your story, but clearly state what you need. What are you asking for? Be direct. If it says, just because it says you have 2,000 characters in a prompt, you don't have to fill all of it in if you can answer the question. If you need all the characters, then use them. But if you don't have to add a lot of extra stuff just to try to fill up the space. I used to be, or before I came to work with the county, I was a grant recipient. So I am telling you from experience, work offline. Use Word because you see the character counts, you can see the word counts. You also will get in Word, it will tell you if your grammar is wrong or if spell check can catch any kind of spelling errors. One thing that annoys reviewers more than anything is if somebody didn't take the time to thoroughly review their application and they leave errors in it. So use the opportunity to do things like working offline and then pasting it in to the application. It also is a good opportunity for you to write it out, step away for a little bit, come back and review it. You'll either spot errors or you'll think maybe that didn't really sound the way I wanted it to sound. So we also ask for a project timeline. And this is because we want to know what you're going to be doing during the time that you are running this project. Now, you will see in the example below that I have where it says August, September planning meetings. When I say that you are limited to the funding dates of November 1 to August 15th, that just means what goes on during that time frame is when you can ask for your reimbursements. A lot of projects begin and start well outside of those dates. You just can't get payments or for expenses that you incurred outside that. But if you start planning in the summertime to get ready for when school comes back in, then you can do that. You just can't ask for expenses to be reimbursed during that time. I also indicate in this example that there's an exhibit or there's going to be an artist reception. We want to know. I come out to stuff. If you tell me when you're having things, I am more than happy to come to see what it is that you do in the community. But if you don't tell me, then I won't necessarily know what is going on. Now, there is a section that has several narrative questions, which are only for the colleges and universities. As long as you hit the nonprofit section in the beginning, you're not going to have to worry about that section, and the colleges and universities have done the application in the past, so they'll be able to easily answer those questions. Now, one thing that I find some people get confused about is when we talk about fiscal year. Hillsborough County's fiscal year is October 1 to September 30th, but every other organization may follow different fiscal years. So you may follow July to June. You may be January to December. When we are asking questions in this application about fiscal year, we're talking about your fiscal year, not the county's fiscal year. And that brings us to the operating budget, which is this tends to be the thing that people get confused about. What I want you to understand when we are asking you about your operating budget, I don't want you to give me your proposed budget for the next year. I want you to tell me how much money you brought in the last fiscal year, how much money you spent in the last fiscal year, and in the current fiscal year, I want to know how much money you've brought in and what you've spent. Now, if your fiscal year began in January, obviously, when you go to fill in the current fiscal year, it's not going to be that much. Do not be freaked out or alarmed by that. We understand. You've only had a couple of months where you've done something. One of the things we will look at is the completed fiscal year from last year and also your tax returns. Those tell us the story of what your organization has been able to do. And if it is, if you've got stuff going on that's only a couple of months long, you may not even have that much going on if a lot of your stuff doesn't start until the spring. Just have to give us what we ask for. So last completed fiscal year is for 2024. Current fiscal year is what you are doing right now. And if you have a question about that, again, feel free to reach out and ask me. Now, as I said, the operating budget is actual dollars and cents. It is not your projected budget. Do not fill in that you think you're going to do $50,000 in the current fiscal year because you haven't brought that in yet. Give us the actual dollars and cents. Now, one of the things in the operating budget it asks whether or not you have received government funding from any source, and then you have to identify the amount and the source. So if, for example, you received a community arts impact grant last year in fiscal year 2024, you would include that in that section, and then you would tell us what it was for. If you received money from the city of Tampa, you would tell us that it was there. If you received money from the state of Florida, you would put it in there. If, for example, you have asked or you are receiving a community arts impact grant for fiscal year 2025 and you haven't submitted a reimbursement request yet, then you haven't received any government money in the current fiscal year. Just keep all that in mind when you are filling this out. And again, I am here to answer any of your specific questions. Now, the project budget is what you are telling us about your project, what you want to receive funding for. Now, it's going to be, your project budget is not just what you get from us. You may have a project budget of $20,000 and you are going to allocate out of that whatever the 5 that you want to get from community arts impact. So let's say I think I have an example coming up next. If you want to receive reimbursement for artists, you're going to put that amount in. It may be what you're actually going to spend may be larger than what you're asking for from the county. We also want to know whether or not there are other sources of income. Tell us how you are going to pay for the project from other sources. If it is higher than the 5, or tell us how you're going to pay for it if you have to pay for it before you can get the reimbursement. So do you have classes and fees and things that you pay for, or your board is 100% contributors? We need to know how you are funding this particular project. Now, as I've said, please think carefully about your project budget because you are limited to what you put in that project budget as to what you can request for reimbursement. Now, here's the example that I just referenced a second ago. If you are asking for art instructors at $4,500 and supplies at $500, you can't then in April or May submit a reimbursement request for mileage or venue rental because you didn't ask for that in your application budget. Think about it. You also have to remember that you have to keep your receipts. They have to be attached and included in each reimbursement request. I need to know who you paid, when you paid it, how much you paid, and if that payment actually went through, which is critical. I can't just get copies of checks. I need to see that they actually were cashed. Now, under the required support materials, which is kind of toward the end of the application, The only required support material other than the 990, 990 EZ or the postcard and the IRS determination letter at the beginning is a list of your board of directors. And we would like you to include affiliation information. And for purposes of this particular application, we have defined that as the educational qualifications, the professional or work experience, and the current term of each board member. We want to know who's on the board and what kind of experience they have to help guide the organization. Then we have a section called optional support material. Now, this is it's two separate things. One, the support materials can be things like brochures or flyers or videos or photos, something that helps when the reviewers are looking at it, going to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and maybe even what is your project. The second section is letters of support, collaboration, or partnership. Now, these are not letters of support from you telling us that you're going to do a great job. It's letters of support from someone outside of your organization with whom you have worked in the past or who you're going to work on this particular project with. And don't get confused by support, collaboration, and partnership. I mean, if you are partnering with somebody because they do a project and you are going to kind of be something that fills in, like, for example, you are partnering with a human services organization that gives parenting classes, and you want to offer art classes for the children of those parents, then you should get a partnership from them saying that they are allowing you to use their venue and that they're going to provide access to the children and that you can come in and you can do your art projects with those kids. If you're collaborating with someone on something, like you're going to have an event or you're going to have an exhibit somewhere, or if you have a supporter, those are the kinds of things that reviewers like to see, that someone has connections in the outside of their organization where there are, like, you've either done something or you're going to do something, but we need to see that it's actually going to take place. Now here, the letters, it's important that the letters be on some type of lettership from the letterhead, from the organization that you are promote or giving your support. Try to make it some sort of reference to the actual project. Make sure that the date is correct. If you submit a letter that somebody wrote for you in 2023 for another funder and then you submit that, it doesn't do us any good. It's not something that's going to be of any substance to the reviewers. Make sure that it is current, that it is dated like now, March of 2025, and that it is addressed to the Arts Council Advisory Board and not some other funder. Now, here are some of the tips. I think I've already gone over some of this before. My strong suggestion is to work offline. You can always use spell check. You can check your grammar on that. You can have somebody review your work. You can proofread it, and then you can copy it into and paste it into the application. Remember to save your work when you're in Neighborly. It doesn't necessarily save automatically. And again, there is no spell check or word count or character count in Neighborly. If you don't have a required document when you get to a spot, you can save where you are. The only time you get in trouble is when you hit submit or complete. If you're just saving, you can get back into the section. It'll have a little bit slightly different colored dot, which will indicate to you that you haven't completed that particular section. And then I can help with errors if we see something that is obvious, but I can't give you advice on the application itself. Now, just briefly, if you do receive funding, again, we will have an grant administration workshop in probably sometime in November or December. But if the Board of County Commission does vote to fund these applications, you will then get a grant agreement, which will require a signature from your organization, someone who's authorized to enter the organization into a contract, because the grant agreement is in fact a contract. And then we will have a representative from the county sign it, and then you will get a copy of the fully executed one. You need to remember that nothing can move forward until the grant agreement has been executed by everyone. We also will need a signed, dated W-9, which we have to provide to the clerk's office in order for any reimbursements to go forward. Again, as I indicated, we will hold a grants administration sometime in either late November or December to go over all of the information that you need to know with respect to the grant agreement and making reimbursements. So again, be proactive. You can avoid a lot of problems if you apply early. Again, there are no exceptions beyond the deadline of Friday, March 28 at 5 p.m. In fact, Neighborly shuts down at 5 p.m. So it's best to even get it in before then. They will not accept any further applications after that. We have included a sample application. The grant guidelines and last year's administration manual are on our website at hillsborougharts.org. You can print out the application and you can see it. You can also print out the application on Neighborly once you sign in, and then you can work off the prompts and what the information, so you can gather everything and get it prepared offline. So at this point, if anyone has any questions, I hope I didn't go too fast for everyone, but please let me know either now or if you think of something later. My phone number is always available to anyone, and I do answer the phone whenever anybody calls.
Kathy, I think someone had a question. They said they missed the first part when you were talking about the minimum score. I saw that. Could you go over that again?
Okay. So each applicant has to receive a minimum score of at least 75 from the reviewers. However, as I indicated, even if you get a 75, do not count your chickens before they're hatched, because the county commission board of county commissioners have to vote on the funding. So once the reviewers go through and they vote on all the applications, I will let you know what your score is, but that doesn't mean that you have the funding.
What is the score based on?
There is a rubric, which I have to check and make sure that we put it on the website, but we do have a rubric that the reviewers follow.
But basically it's access and community engagement, artistic and cultural vitality, and organization capacity. So the grant reviewers give a score in each of those areas, and then it's combined to be the total score. And then for the purposes of the panel meeting, all of the scores are averaged. So it's the average score that has to be that level 75. So someone could have scored you a lot lower, someone could have scored you a lot higher, but when we've got to have an average of all scores. But there are 4 separate areas in which they score. And to Kathy's earlier comment about the timeline, that we need a timeline, even though it's going to be outside the grant period, I think this is really important because the grant reviewers love to see that you put planning into this, maybe 6 months ahead of time, that you didn't just come up with this idea to put through an application and get funding, that it has been planned, that it aligns with your organizational mission. They like to see that very much. So I would encourage you to think about that when you do your timeline.
Hi, I just wanted to chime in real quick since Kathy mentioned this. The rubric is online with the other documents, so if you want to see it, it is there.
Thank you, Eileen.
There's also another question that came in from Melissa. Kathy, it says that she basically wants to know if they can have some wiggle room in the budget. For example, if they spend more money on art supplies, and what the acceptable limit of that is.
Okay, so if, for example, and this has happened in the past, if, for example, you have an event or you have something going on and you ask for example, instructors, or you ask for supplies, and maybe you are finding that your supply amounts are going to be a little bit higher than what you had budgeted, you can contact us and we can give you a grant request change form, and you can show why maybe you need $75 more in supplies and 75 less in art instructors. You just can't come back and like completely change your budget with the grant request change. and we understand that things do change, prices can change, costs can go up. When I say you're limited to what is in your budget, you just have to keep in mind, like, you can't suddenly ask for, as I said, if you ask for artists to be paid, and now you want, I don't know, now you want to spend money on marketing. That may have not have been discussed or talked about in the application. So if it's something that the reviewers didn't see or didn't give a score on, it's not something that's likely to be granted in a request change.
Basically, to get an approved change, it needs to still be within the scope of what you put in your application. If it deviates substantially from that, chances are it won't be approved. But as long we all understand inflation and costs go up and things happen that you don't expect, and funders have to respond to that, but you just can't create a new project or go in a completely different direction. But we can adjust to those kinds of changes very easily.
Excuse me.
And when Kathy says she's available, she's available. So if you have questions, let her know. She would be happy to answer any specific questions as you're dealing with neighborly or anything that comes up. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes neighborly, you may have a problem with that, and let Kathy know, because it may not be just your problem. It could be a problem with neighborly, not with you. So she needs to know that so she can touch base with the online grant company and make sure there's nothing odd going on. I would like to emphasize what Kathy said about not waiting till the last minute to apply. The two advantages are, if you apply a day or two early, gives us a chance to look it over, and if we see something's missing, tell you why you can still change it. But the other thing is, last minute, right around 5 o'clock, if everybody's putting in applications, then it's, we can have an internet issue. And if you miss the deadline, there are no exceptions. So don't even wait that close. At least submit during the middle of the day if you're going to submit on the day of the deadline, because then if you have a problem and it doesn't go through, you can call Kathy and Kathy will figure it out, and we'll take care of it. But we can't do much to help if it's right at 5 p.m. and you're submitting. So please take that advice of hers to heart. I think it's very good advice. Eileen, can you read what Sherry said?
Oh, yeah, she originally put this in the Q&A. She just wanted to confirm that Kathy is really responsive and so helpful. Don't hesitate to ask questions, but don't wait. The deadlines are real.
Thank you, Sherry. I couldn't have put it better myself, but Kathy is your go-to person, and she will talk you through every step of the way.
Any other questions?
Someone else is typing actively right now, so my feeling is okay. This says I may have missed a few notes in the slides. Is there a way I can get a copy of the slides I missed?
Yes, I will turn this into a PDF and I will send it to everyone who attended and anyone who is in or received the link from me. I'll make sure everybody gets it.
And there also is a recording, is there not, Kathy?
Yes, there's also a recording. That just takes a couple of days to get done. But I will send out the PDF like today.
And if you still would like a copy of the recording after you get the PDF, just let Kathy know. Not everybody may not want it, especially if you attended. The recording's more for people that were not able to attend, but it's not the same as attending. So once again, I commend you all. You're taking the first step in being a successful grantee by attending this workshop. And if you do become a grantee, be sure to attend the grant administration workshop that comes after you sign the grant agreement, because that will also help you be successful throughout the entire process.
Eileen, does it look like anyone else is typing?
No, it's gotten quiet now, so I'm feeling that maybe there are no more questions. Unless somebody
Okay.
does it right now.
Well, let's wrap it up then. But if you do have questions and they weren't answered, you know how to get in touch with Kathy, and she will help you. But in the interest of everyone's time, we're going to sign off now. And thank you for the thank you. Thank you for coming. We really think it's important for your success as a grant writer, not just for this grant, but for any grants you apply for, to find out the most you can in advance. It will make your life a lot easier.
All right, thank you, everyone.